And welcome back to JKLive, the home edition, right here on Citizen Television. We've been talking about COVID last 4 months, but very few people are talking about mental health and COVID. The two are interrelated. Who better to talk about this than the mental health expert himself, Dr. Frank Njenga. Good to see you, Doc. Thank you for taking my call earlier on and talking about this very important subject.
My greatest possible pleasure, Jeff.
Thank you, sir. Listen, real quick, let's go to the kids first because they're the most important. They're the reason why we're here. So children are confined at home. They can't play with friends. They haven't been to school in 4 months. They're going nuts. How is this affecting our kids, Doc?
The first thing I'd like to say is that our children are normal children exposed to an abnormal environment. And therefore, when we see our children, depending on their age, becoming more clingy to their parents than usual, becoming more anxious, some becoming very withdrawn and without any explanation, becoming very angry and expressing outbursts. That, Jeff, I have to say, is because these are normal children exposed to an abnormal environment visited to us by this COVID-19 situation. Therefore, what really parents need to do is, rather than push away these very clingy and irritable children, is to actually give them more time and comfort and to understand that they're afraid. The problem with the situation as it is today is that not only are the children afraid, the parents are equally afraid and uncertain, and the parents themselves are afraid of a whole variety of things, including their own health, the possibility of getting to the virus, and so on. So you have two scared people. You have the children and their parents. And what really parents need to understand is that the children need a safe environment to talk about their fears. It's about what parents could do or ought to do for their children. One of the most important things children need is a kind of routine. The time of getting up in the morning, the time for going to bed, the time for exercising, the time for playing, exercising, for example. All these are critical things that parents need to have in mind deliberately and systematically for the safety and for the mental welfare of their children.
Dr. Ari, forget for a moment about the children in the suburbs who have access to Wi-Fi, who can play PlayStation all day long, and they won't even care if it's daytime or nighttime. Let's go to the inner cities, the slums. Everyone is confined. No one can go out. Like you said, everyone is scared. What do you tell those kids? What do you tell those parents?
I've said this many times before, Jeff, and some people believe me, some don't believe me. Parents, since Adam himself and Eve, are good people. They're able people. And really very little by way of new tricks are available to parents. Because if that was not the case, if parents generally were not able and competent parents, we wouldn't have a generation after generation of normal, healthy Kenyans. That said, it doesn't really matter whether you live in a place where you have a PlayStation and Wi-Fi and that sort of thing. Children are children, parents are parents, and the kind of things that I have listed, fear by the parents, fear by the children, and needing to listen to the children and to the parents, are all the things that a good parent continue to do and have done over the years. So really the needs, the emotional and psychological needs of children are the same, irrespective of geographical location.
Okay, let's move from the children, Doc, to teenagers. The hormones are raging. They want to hang out with their friends. They want to be out of their house. They don't want to be anywhere near their parents. But there they are, sharing the same air, the same space. What about the teens, Doc?
Again, I've said this before. Teenagers are teenagers. And I have visited the world and thinking and talking about teenagers, starting with here in Kenya, all the way to Iceland and Greenland and the United States, Australia, everywhere. The teenagers, as you quite rightly say, are driven by a need to experiment and push the boundaries. A teenager who's not pushing boundaries is not a teenager. And I think parents need to accept and acknowledge that the default position of a teenager is to break the rules. And that is almost how you define a normal teenager. That said, we are not in normal times. We're living in abnormal times. And I think the way parents have historically related to their children before COVID-19 will, to a large extent, determine how their teenagers will behave during and after COVID-19. And therefore, and this I will say, the reaction of parents in relation to their teenagers will be a reflection of the extent to which parents have historically related to their children, bearing in mind that teenagers are by nature, character, and definition rebels, and they will continue to be rebellious. But if they respect their parents treat them with respect. I think that those are the characteristics that will enable parents to guide their children through this turbulent time, not only of COVID-19, but of hormones that keep telling them to break all the rules that have been put by government and by parents for their own safety.
Yeah, I'm about to welcome a teenager into the house in a couple of days' time, Doc, so I know exactly what you mean. So from kids to teens to adults, we've had a partial lockdown, maybe 4 months now, about 4 months? Remember when the curfew was 7 p.m. to 5 a.m.? Means get home early. It means change your lifestyle. It means change your habits. How has that affected us as a people?
Well, first of all, Jeff, remember your teenage son will be a bit like you are yourself. I don't have exact recollection of how you behaved, but I'm sure you remember yourself. And, whatever you did to your parents, he'd probably do the same to you. Pole sana. So what has happened to normal people? Well, yeah, look at him laughing. What has happened to normal people? I think normal husbands and wives and partners have behaved to this abnormal environment in the ways that we recognize. For example, human beings are not designed, relationship anyway, for a man and his wife or partner to face each other from morning every day until for 24 hours. We're designed in such a way that one or other leaves home and goes and does whatever it is. And when they come back together in the evening, both are very happy to see each other. Now, the problem is not only are we being forced to be in each other's face 24 hours a day, we are being forced to do that in very, very uncertain times. We've been told by Cherutich that she didn't do anything that is not allowed by government, and yet she's tested positive. That fear that we all have drives our anxiety levels. And in addition to that, we have the tension of uncertainty about whether we will have jobs or whether we will have pay cuts. And then the very things that help us normally to get healthy, which is to make contact with our friends. The boys go out and do whatever boys do. The girls go out and do whatever girls do. Those are the things that at one point or another government told us, don't do that. Other people like to go and visit their elderly parents. You're not allowed to do that. Others want to go and do kesha. You can't do kesha. So the very things that are normally promotive of good health are the very things that keep us safe away from the coronavirus. And therefore, normal people have been turned into situations that are really leading on to alcohol abuse, domestic violence, and all the things that we are all aware of are increasing, not just in Kenya, but all over the world.
I'm glad you mentioned alcohol right there, Dr. because alcohol sales banned, bars closed, no selling alcohol. Does that help?
Well, I was thinking about it earlier in the day, and as a look at the results of East Africa breweries, as a medical practitioner, I was thinking to myself, nobody would have seen this COVID-19 as providing us with a silver lining in relation to the number of road accidents that we're experiencing, the number of young men who stab each other, the number of people who will develop cirrhosis of the liver, the number of people who will develop neurological disorders. All those are silver linings out of an extremely dark cloud. Because remember when I was in Nakada, we advocated for restriction of alcohol consumption and so on, hoping that reduced accessibility, particularly to young people, would actually improve the health and well-being and long-term outcomes for people who eventually become addicted to alcohol. See, it's come from COVID-19 and its complications. I mean, it's a very, very, very dark cloud, but in relation to alcohol, this reduction of availability can only be good in terms of stress. Remember, Jeff, that young people, when they start drinking at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the evening, they are fine, actually, and they have 1 or 2 drinks. If they can go home early, it's fine. It's when it gets to 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and all the brakes are let loose, that they start breathing into each other's faces, that the spread takes place. So I think this reduction in availability can only be a good thing. And I really, truly, completely support that move.
But Dr. everybody loves their local. Everybody loves to go from work, catch some pints, eventually get home. And even when they ease the restrictions, people were rushing to these locals, sitting outside as the local was closed. What is it about our people?
Jeff, you know what? I will say this again ad infinitum ad nausea. We're just normal people. Going to your local is healthy. Being with your buddies is healthy. But you must love your friends and your neighbors and your families and your parents and grandparents more than you love your pints, because they will only survive this COVID thing if you love them enough for you not to go and have that pint. After all, God willing, this COVID thing will go back to wherever it came from. A vaccine will be found. We'll develop what is called herd immunity, which is immunity of between 60, 70% of the people. The poor virus will not be able to move on from one person to another, and the virus will die dead completely. So the virus will be killed either by a vaccine or by all of us developing what is called herd immunity. This virus will go away. That I can promise you, because I'm an old man and I know many things.
I don't doubt you at all there, Dr. I'm going to take a quick break, come back, and talk about domestic abuse. You know this as well as we do. It's on the rise during COVID-19. Mental health. What should we do? What are the signs to look out for? Please give us some advice. We're looking for any advice we can get, because we've never been in this place in our lives. I don't know anyone who was around 1918, maybe Sir Charles, but no, that was 1920. Okay, so
yeah.
Anyway, I don't know anybody else. So you tell us about that.
I will.
Let's take a break. JKLive is smoking. Keep tweeting at Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag JKLive. JKLive takes a break. We'll be back in a moment.